Our guest today is the super talented drag king, part of the prolific Brooklyn collective Switch and Play. He was B&A's Drag King of the Year in 2017 and has only continued to grow more and more as a performer. I'm happy to have with me today the wonderful Vigor Mortis. How do you do?
Hi.
All right, so let's start at the very beginning. So
Way back.
Way back. Well, depends. We'll see how way back it was.
Right.
So what was your first exposure to drag as an art form?
My very first exposure to drag ever was Shakespeare. Like way back. I did a lot of Shakespeare growing up, and then wound up teaching at a Shakespeare camp in for a while as a counselor. I was a student there and then became a counselor. And that was the first time that anyone ever put me in drag. Where I was playing around with, we were going to change a character to Donna Pedra or something like that, and the guy was like, why don't you just do it as Don Pedro and we'll put you in drag. And I was like, hell yeah, that sounds great.
Very Shakespearean thing to do.
Very
as well.
Shakespearean, yeah, totally. And so that was the first time that I had ever like put a beard on and walked around on stage, and it was wonderful. I loved being able to like change my physicality at that time to be something so butch, because the character is just like super butch, and I played it like the most butch I could possibly muster, and it was really fun. And so that was like my very first exposure to it. And then I the next time was a couple years later. I saw All the King's Men perform, which is a drag troupe that I don't think is still active, but their members still do drag independently. And I saw them at a queer conference for youth, and it blew my mind. It blew my mind. It was so good. And they were a whole group of drag kings, and they would move between doing femme drag and drag king stuff. And it was wonderful. It was so cool. And it messed with everyone's minds. And all the little teens had no idea, like, what was going on stage and who they were attracted to and stuff like that, because we were, I was like 15 or 16 at the time. So everyone was just 14, probably. Yeah. Younger than that, 14. Everyone was so excited to be like, like that's what we were all in a huge group of fellow queers for like probably the first time in a very long time, where basically the only thing we were doing is getting people's numbers. So, or their chat. Yeah. Names and stuff. So that was the big thing to do. It'd be like, oh yeah, like which one of these presenters do you think is hot? And then there were these drag kings that got on stage, and everyone was like, we don't know what to feel. And I was like, I want more of that in my life.
So you describe your relationship as kind of like a love at first sight.
Yes, very much. I fell in love with it immediately. It wound up meaning a lot more to me later on, because it became the vehicle through which I came out as being transgender. And that was not until I was a fully fledged adult post-college in the world that, performing in Brooklyn for the first time actually with Switch and Play at one of their open drag nights. After that, about 2 weeks later, I came out as being trans after that. But it gave me, it kept showing up at these random moments in my life to kind of remind me that this was something that could be, that masculinity was something that I could flirt with. And if it was something that I wanted to do more than flirt with, I could. And so being able to put that on and walk around as a different persona was very healing for me. It helped me kind of see how I wanted to be perceived in the world. And yeah, so drag was definitely love at first sight, and then became necessary for me in a lot of ways to like edit who I am as a person, which is it's been really valuable, as well as being really, really fun.
What made you finally take the plunge and do it yourself?
Goldie Peacock, who is my drag dad. Goldie is a non-binary performance artist who has been working in the city for years and years. You can catch them going at Henrietta Hudson a lot recently, if that's something that anyone is able to do. But they were teaching a drag king workshop in a 3-part series. And I found it on Facebook, and I was like, I wonder if this is something that is still going on. And I messaged them, and they were like, absolutely. There's, come through and see what we got going on. And it started out with just like doing kind of the look, and then talking about the history of drag kings and the people that we need to look at that have preceded us, and then like, creating your own character and your backstory, and then moving through the space with choreo, but like each as our own person. It was really, really valuable. And I was just super nervous because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is going to be a mess. I've never done this before. I've put drag on my body before, but I've never like done a drag show. This is insanity. I'm not doing that. And Goldie just kept being like, go out and find something. Just go do it. Just go do it. And it was very kind of a kismet kind of situation where at the last minute, someone at a Switch and Play open drag night called Moxie, which we still do sometimes, dropped out, and they had an extra space, and they messaged me and asked, can you put something together in like 10 hours? I was like, I guess.
Yeah.
But I threw something together, and it was horrible. And Miss Malice from Switch and Play will always say that it was not horrible, but like it makes me very uncomfortable to think about, just because it was so like, oh, so broy. But but I did it. And once you get, it's kind of like getting a tattoo. You get the first one, you're like, oh man, I kind of need another one.
What's the story behind the name Vigor Mortis?
Well, it was going to be Cash Casanova.
Ooh, I love that. That's such like a gay porn star vibe.
So is. And actually, I went to college with Bitch Puddin' of Dragula fame, and also just she's amazing. And we have been talking back and forth a little bit, and I was like, man, I'm kind of tossing up between like Cash Casanova, and then I was going to go with R. Igor Mortis for like rigor mortis. And she was like, do not do Cash Casanova. Like, it is do not do Cash Casanova. And I was like, all right, fine. So then I started out being like, well, I'll be R. Igor. But then I was like, the idea of having to tell people to say, like, hearing on the mic, R. Igor Mortis, was like, oh God, that's so tedious. So then Vigor Mortis, I was like, what else rhymes with rigor? Vigor. And so being vigorously deceased, I think, is pretty funny. It's very Beetlejuicy.
Yes.
To be, pretty spry for a dead guy. Mm-hmm. That's that's kind of the notion.
So then you mentioned that your kind of start with Switch and Play was them reaching out to you. Mm-hmm. How did you end up becoming a more permanent member? Well,
I haunted them a lot. So I would go to their shows a ton. And as just an audience member, they used to do these lip sync battles. And every time that I would volunteer myself like quite a bit and stuff like that. And eventually, actually, they asked me, and I don't know why I decided to play coy in this moment, but they asked me, they're like, would you like to, be a part of, I did some like group numbers with them before I was in, because there had been some people that couldn't make it and things like that. And they used to do like big boy band numbers and stuff. And we're trying to get back into that again. But, like I danced all through my childhood. So, I was, I can pick up choreo really fast. So I was able to like sub in and things like that. And they're like, we really like your vibe, and we have a really good time with you, and we're becoming friends. Like, do you want to be part of this? And for some reason I was like, not yet. I'm not sure. And I was like, you need to court me a little. Just like, you need to court me a little bit. And they were like, all right, weirdo. Sure. Like, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But then eventually, of course, I wound up saying yes. And Nyx Nocturne and I joined at the same time, who's another one of my castmates and very, very good friends. So yeah, we both were kind of brought in at the same time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we haven't spoken to many drag kings on our show so far, though that is changing.
Fantastic.
But listeners may be a little in the dark about the culture, since typically speaking, drag queen culture seems to be a more mainstream thing, unfortunately. So that being said, would you say that there's an overlap between drag queen and drag king culture, and then where do they split, and is there not a split, or is there not an overlap?
Totally. It splits at misogyny. That's honestly where the split happens, is that if someone says, well, you can't do drag because of whatever that is, that's where the split happens. And that's where you start to see certain performers will kind of be in one camp and have a lot to say about those things and will never book drag kings and things like that. And they're missing out because, I think the thing that's tough about being a drag person who performs masculinity is that masculinity is inherently hurtful in a lot of ways that we know it, and that we see it performed by people in a day-to-day way. It is not inherently hurtful if you break it down, because it's just like, it's a power construct, right? So the power that we put with masculinity is the part that hurts us. You have to be very conscious of the type of masculinity that you're exposing your audience to, and how and what it makes them feel like. And there's so many people that are so interested in seeing what drag kings are capable of, because I think that it's been pointed out so many times and proven over and over again that we can hold our own in these competitions and groups and shows and things like that it's kind of hard to ignore at a certain point. Like, I think one of my favorite stories about Kay James, who is the longest running member of Switch and Play. He's been Switch and Play for 12 years now, I think. It's a very, very long time as a member of a collective and to be a drag king. But he was competing in Mary Cherry's Dragnet years ago. And not only did he win, but he beat Aja in a lip sync off for, and it was to like Madonna, like old school Madonna, and he knew it and she didn't. And it wasn't just against her, it was the other queens didn't know it either, but he just just slid in a very sexy way, just slid to the front and just nailed every single word, and it was magical. It was a magical moment. But it was one of those great moments where I think a lot of people, not only was he the first drag king to compete in that competition, but he won it. And a lot of people in that space, even in that bar, were just like, whoa, yeah, maybe this is somebody we need to look out for.
Kind of on the same topic, you've mentioned previously that sometimes when you perform, you're not necessarily going on stage and like thinking that, oh, I'm a drag king in this moment. But so there's some people that tend to find the terms drag king and queen problematic, like associating masculinity with a king and femininity with a queen, while others take the label with pride, like Kay James has like wholeheartedly embraced like drag king, I think, or at least from what I've seen in interviews.
Yeah, for sure. Especially as a trans man, that's really important to him.
So how do you feel about the labels of drag queen and king overall?
Well, it's really fascinating because I think that the drag king was coined as a reaction to drag queen being a thing. So if you looked at it, people are like, well, what would the counterpart to this be? Well, it would be a drag. If somebody said like a screaming queen was a derogatory term, right? Like to say that to a queer person was derogatory at one point. And still can be today, obviously. But then that was something that was taken and brought into, and be like, okay, well, we're going to take this and repurpose it and say, well, we're drag queens. So we do this professionally. And then that was kind of a reactionary thing to be like, okay, what would be the counterpart, right? So that would be a king. I think that you use whatever language works for you. If king makes you feel powerful, even if you're non-binary, even if you like, it's kind of like people referring to themselves who are femme, referring them to themselves as daddy. Do it. If that makes you feel powerful and wonderful, do that. And if you are a femme king and that's how you identify, then go for it. Live your dreams. Or if you're a butch queen and you want to like really, embrace that and feel really good about that, or a masculine queen and that's how you want to do things, do it.
I think many trans artists tend to be asked questions that start with some variation of, as a trans person X or as a trans person Y. Do you ever find that people focus on this aspect to the point where it becomes distracting for you, or do you find it crucial to discussing your work and your art as a whole?
That's a really good question. It depends. It really depends, because my tagline is trans boy drag king. I put it first. I put it before being a drag king. And part of that is because what I do or what I see myself doing is different types of gender performance. So I like to play with different types of masculinity and kind of put on different characters that I see in TV or movies or in my everyday life, and kind of like what would Fi-Dye dude drag be? Like what would like cranky dad at 4 a.m. drag be? You know what I mean? Like, and I try to like try those things out and put them into characters and all of that as a way of playing. Yeah. And that helps inform my identity off stage as well, because there's certain things that sometimes I'll discover on stage. I'll be like, this is for me now. And some of my work is directly related to it. I do, there's a number that I do that is directly about my trans identity, which is I call it my boy number, which is where I'm wearing a dress and I have a full face of makeup on. That's the way that I wore it when I was in college. And about exposing the fact that I am a boy and how that makes me feel and things like that. And that is not Vigor. That's very much Vigor acting as a vehicle for me to tell a story that's important to me. Me being trans is a part of my life all the time, every day, from the second I wake up and even when I'm asleep. Yeah. But it is certainly not the only thing about me, And I think that a lot of people, anybody that has any type of identity in that way can feel that way, where it's like, I also sometimes just want to be a person and want to put this aside, but when you're on stage, you are kind of even just like putting your body on stage as a trans body, especially if I'm taking my shirt off, exposes the fact that I'm trans in a very real way, especially post top surgery. Yeah. So sometimes I don't want to play into it, but people that are watching me will take something away from it involving that. And that's okay. It's kind of, once you put art out there, it's not really yours anymore. It is yours, but it's also like people's reactions are their own, and they have the right to have that.
As I mentioned in the intro, you were B&A's Drag King of the Year in 2017.
Sure was.
In addition, you've worked for Sasha Velour. You've performed as part of her Nightgown series. You perform as part of Switch and Play, which has garnered a whole lot of acclaim. You have fans. You have a documentary.
We do.
So these are a lot of noteworthy accomplishments that I think would suggest a successful career so far. However, for you, how do you determine success for yourself?
As long as I'm still having fun. That's the biggest thing. Drag for me has always been super informative, but more than anything, really fun. And as soon as it stops being fun, then I'm not being successful at it. So I feel like I'm very much in the height of it now, because things that terrify me are also fun, like performing at Terminal 5 with Sasha was definitely terrifying. Janet Jackson was in the front row. That's awesome. It was awesome, and they didn't tell us until about 2 minutes before we went on stage. And Kay James and I were like, "You have got to be kidding me! Are you? The Queen is here! How dare you!" We were so bad. We're so mad, but also thrilled, of course. And I saw her crack a teeny tiny smile, and I was just like, I made her smile. I can die happy now. Everything's done. Everything in my life I've ever wanted to do. And I got to perform with Lip Synca, who is an absolute legend. Yep. And and Sasha herself, and Sasha Colby, and Vander Von Odd, and Untitled Queen, and Miss Mal. Like, everyone in that show was Neon Calypso. Oh my God. Everyone in that show was absolutely fantastic. But it was very scary, but it was also just super exciting. It was super exciting, and it was so much fun.
I mentioned before that you worked for a while as an assistant to Sasha Velour.
I did.
Is there anything that you took from that time that you applied to either your drag or your work ethic today, and if so, what?
Oh my gosh. Time management means everything. Time management means everything. That was such a wonderful, intense learning opportunity. In order to do what she does, she has to be a perfectionist. Yep. And that is not easy all the time. Most definitely not for her. So another thing I think is to like keeping a sympathetic eye towards the people who you're working with is a huge part of it too. Because whatever you're going through, they're probably going through something very similar, if not more. Especially if they're your boss. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you don't really know about. Um, but like, give yourself enough time. Give yourself more time than you think you need, and try to plot and plan as much as you can ahead of time.
From your point of view as a drag king, are there any changes that you've noticed to your sliver of the drag scene that you've noticed over time? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it keeps getting weirder and weirder. People are taking bigger and bigger risks. I think that the notions of like what makes a proper drag performer have fallen by the wayside more and more, and I think that that's wonderful, because I would so much rather see someone who is in jeans and a t-shirt and a Sharpie drawn mustache, just giving me the whole fantasy, the full story, and selling every single inch of their soul, than someone who's paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars for someone else to make an outfit, and what they do is stand on stage and don't remember the words, you know. And like, there's so many beautiful things about getting looks together and spending a ton of time and effort and money doing those types of things, but they're not always accessible to everyone. So I don't think that that is the only valid form of drag. And I think that the scene has definitely embraced that a lot, where you'll see a lot of people that are not like drag queens that are not padding anymore, you know, and they're not wearing, they're not trying to do breast illusions or anything like that. They're just, you know, doing their own body and all of that, or drag kings that are wearing skirts and doing very femme, presenting drag and things like that, and wearing a lot of lipstick and eyeliner and eyelashes and things like that. And there are no rules. And I'm really seeing that being fully embodied by my community right now, is people really saying, I don't care on stage or off stage, just give me shows. Give me a fierce lip sync, know all the words, and just give me energy, and the audience loves it. And that's amazing. That's amazing to be part of.
If you weren't doing drag, what do you think you'd be doing?
Spinning in a circle. Ooh, that's a good question. Probably still backstage managing for for theater. It's such a cathartic thing that I don't really know. I'd probably be looking for something that was exactly like, I was like, how can I get rid of all this anxious energy?
To end things.
Sure.
So for those that are new or getting into appreciating the work of drag kings, is there anything you'd feel like people should know about the art that they might not be aware of? And similarly, do you have any essential readings or viewings related to the world of drag kings? You can plug your documentary if you like.
Fair enough. Let me see. Well, I think the first thing to know is that there is no rule book. So don't walk into a space trying to find ways to compare kings to other kings. And while we're at it, don't do that about drag queens either. You know, one of the biggest, I've worked with a lot of the RuPaul's Drag Race queens, and one of the biggest annoyances from fans, the largest issues, is the fact that they'll say, oh, this looks exactly like Katya, or your face looks exactly like Sasha Velour. And it's like, just knock it off. Literally knock it off. They you know, and it always winds up being a little bit racist too.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. Like that, you know, it's always like the queens of color are getting compared to each other, and it's just don't do that. It's not worth it. It's not worth your time. And also, like, it's not even true.
Yeah.
It's really not even true, and it doesn't make you seem cool or interesting or anything. Like, I know that performers are rolling their eyes when you say things like that.
Yeah.
So so if you want to be cool, don't do that. Also, when you're at shows, don't touch performers' faces literally ever, or their hair ever. Don't do that.
How often do you
All the time. People will kiss you right on the cheek.
Ooh.
Right. I've seen people. I saw one fan run up to Shea Coulee and try to kiss her on the mouth. And it's like, in what universe is that ever okay in any capacity? If you're gonna go for the hug, make sure that the performer is opening their arms first, so this way that they're telling you that you can hug them. And when you do, don't go up over their shoulders, go under their arms around the waist, so you don't pull their wig off. It's very important.
Yeah.
If you do those things, you will be a drag queen's best friend. I will tell you that right now, or a drag king for that matter. And if people don't like to be touched, don't touch them. So consent is super important and super, super important at all times, always, but especially in drag spaces. So walk in with an open mind. Drag kings are doing something that you may not totally understand. That's okay. You know, go see more shows. Go check out other types of kings and see what other people are doing. And you'll start to get it. You'll start to understand like what types of things you like, what types of things you don't like. Again, art is subjective. And so if you don't like something that one king is doing, you'll find another king that you're like, absolutely, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And if you want to get into it, just do it. Just play. There are no rules. There's no way you can do it right or do it wrong. There's no rule book. And all the people that are doing stuff all the people that get famous or get huge in any way are the people that are doing something that is against what everybody else told them they should do. Mm-hmm. Like Androgen, who is a drag king from Florida, and one of my good buds, his face is iconic. It is iconic. And very, very often copied and paid tribute to. But basically, he just did it. And he was like, I'm going to do whatever it is that I like aesthetically. And then all of a sudden, people are like, yes, I want this. So, chances are take a risk. And the worst that can happen is you'll be famous on the internet. Mm-hmm. What was the other half of that question?
Essential reading or viewing.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, our documentary is coming out. It is currently doing the it's called The Night at Switch and Play, and it's doing the festival circuit.
Yes.
So it isn't available yet, but it will be soon, which is really exciting. Venus Boys is that's a documentary from a long time ago about like early drag kings and things like that. Transgender Warriors, Leslie Feinberg is a really good book. Anything Leslie Feinberg is a really good idea. Stone Butch Blues is something I read on a regular basis. It's not specifically about drag kings, but it's very much about like masculinity and dealing with being gender queer and things like that. It's really important. Obviously Kate Bornstein, always a good person to listen to. Oh yeah, like Diane Tor. There's a lot of like there are a lot of famous drag kings. Murray Hill. Murray Hill has been in the showbiz, as he would say, for over 20 years. And he's amazing. Yep. He was in Beth Ditto's music video in the early 2000s or something. I can't remember what the song is. I'll give it to you. But he plays a drag king in her first band's music video. It's amazing.
Murray's got street cred.
He does. And he'll say showbiz more than anyone you'll ever meet in your entire life. And you think that he's doing that for a bit. No, he'll do that all the time. It's kind of amazing.
he from all accounts, he truly lives his aesthetic.
He does. He is like that 24 hours a day. Showbiz.
You gotta love him.
You do.
And with that, thank you so much for your time. If the people want to find you, see you, follow you, where can they do such things?
Totally. It's Hey Vigor Mortis on Twitter and Instagram. And Switch and Play, which is switch the letter N and then play, is on Instagram and Twitter as well. The Switch and Play doc has its own Instagram now. It's called Switch and Play doc. We're on every second and fourth Saturday of the month at Brandon.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.